I've lost my way here. Have I lost my way? No. We're up to page 6. So 7 would be the next one. Oh, right. Okay, Scott Fitzgerald. Here we go. And speaking of F. Scott Fitzgerald, the New York Times reported, to help commemorate its 125th anniversary, the Times Book Review is highlighting some noteworthy first mentions of famous writers. You can find the full list here. Some of our favorites: F. Scott Fitzgerald. In 1916, Princeton admitted only men, and he would often play women's roles in campus plays. The Times featured a photo of Fitzgerald in character, calling him, quote, the most beautiful showgirl, unquote. Is this your comment? Makes me wonder if he and Hemingway ever performed in a cabaret together? Or
that was me.
That was you. Okay. Yeah, that's one of those. I'm sure the Times was delighted to do that, because it's, hey, anything that's LGBTQ or remotely related, and we were there first, this is the most important thing that we can possibly say about F. Scott Fitzgerald at this point. And Scott really only has himself to blame for that, because he was one of the original androgynes. I mean, not literally androgyne, certainly not in the sense that Hemingway was, but he was a very pretty young boy at the time that he was at Princeton, and sort of reveled in that. This is my shtick. This is where I'm working from. All the women are going to love me because I identify far more with female stuff than most men do, and not realizing, no, you're sneaking too far over into no man's land, Scott. It would be nice if that would hold steady the way you saw it and the way you perceived yourself. But no, the ground is very turbulent over there, and you're going to end up somewhere that you're not going to want to end up. And of course, that brought me to and I'm pretty sure I quoted this in the Going Home annotation, from Gore Vidal's The Second American Revolution and Other Essays, 1976 to 1982. One of the birds that came home to roost for Scott was the fact that his perception of homosexuality, which was not favorable, and that was nothing unusual in the 1920s, and that his term for homosexuals was fairy or fairies. Again, that's shifting ground, and by the time Gore Vidal is coming along and is an early champion of the normalizing of homosexuality, this really rubbed him the wrong way. And I can read his essay, F. Scott Fitzgerald's Case, over and over and never get tired of it, because it's so artfully done. To me, it's misguided, but beautifully phrased, definitely stacked in his deck. Here's the paragraph that I considered relevant. He says, there are very few youths as handsome as Fitzgerald who go unseduced by men or boys in the sort of schools that he attended. And it's like, that's that's one of those ones where if I was your college professor, I would write in the margin in red ink, "Prove?" question mark. It's this is Dow's prejudice. I would maintain as a gay man that this was a verifiable truth that he was enunciating. That there are very few youths as handsome as Fitzgerald who go unseduced by men or boys in the sort of schools that he attended. I'm sure that was Gore Vidal's experience, but that's got to be far more a homosexual than a straight experience. Zelda's occasional accusations that Fitzgerald was homosexual have usually been put down to the fact that she was either off her rocker or mounted on that rocker. She was eager to wound Fitzgerald to draw psychic blood. That seems balanced to me. That's pretty much the two sides of that argument. In a position paper which Fitzgerald may or may not have sent to Zelda when she was hospitalized, he wrote, quote, "The nearest I ever came to leaving you was when you told me you thought that I was a fairy in the Rue Palatine," unquote. And then Gore Vidal goes on to say the answer to that one is stay away from the Rue Palatine. And it's like, okay, I understand the compelled inference by the way that he's saying it. The Rue Palatine was a hangout for homosexuals, and I think that was one of those. Fitzgerald was just being, Fitzgerald, the handsome young author, handsome virile young author, and to Zelda, it looked like he was just flirting with everybody in the vicinity. And, that's one of those, well, okay, if you're walking through an area that's primarily made up of gay men and you're in Paris or you're in France, that's going to look one way to your American wife than it does to them and than it does to you. I had to close the book at that point because it's like, no, just watching Gore Vidal slice and dice people is definitely intellectual blood sport and not worthy of my time and attention. The other one that stuck in my mind was there was a note in one of Fitzgerald's notebooks that was reprinted in the collection, the postmortem collection, the Crack Up. And I'm not sure, I don't remember how he said it, but it was interesting. And I got to go through all of these notes until I find it. I found it. It was an observation. Men get to be a mixture of the charming mannerisms of the women they have known. And it's like, no. Again, it's a nice idea. I understand what you're talking about, but no, you don't want to graft on female mannerisms to yourself and then take umbrage when people think that you're gay or your wife thinks that you're gay. I think what he's talking about is certainly in any relationship when you are you have an intimate relationship with a woman, particularly if you're married and you're together for years on end. You certainly do come to note their particular mannerisms, and you do notice that those mannerisms come to mind in specific situations. I'm thinking of when I was going out with Susan Alston. She had a puttering face that she put on. She was a great putterer because she was a great homemaker. So she had a specific face that was part in thrust chin, eyes darting back and forth at whatever it is that she next had to fix. And whenever I'm puttering, like washing dishes or having to dust or clean or whatever else, those mannerisms do come to mind. I don't see myself doing them, which I think where Scott went over the line, that the various women that he was involved with, he would picture that and then sort of assume the mannerism himself. It's like, no, it's intimacy is one thing, projection is something else entirely, and you want to avoid that. It's very nice to know somebody well enough to know unconscious mannerisms and to call those to mind and think of those when you're doing something that they're doing. But the actual phraseology, men get to be a mixture of the charming mannerisms of the women they have known. No, there you're talking about the sum of your own being and existence. And I would definitely avoid doing that, and I don't think Scott did avoid doing that. He thought that made him a man of the future, the genuine Superman who was coming up ahead, who would do things like that, basically become the sum of the charming mannerisms of the women that he had known. So, again, there's probably far more information on that one than you wanted, but as soon as I read the observations and I thought, oh yeah, that's the New York Times, all right. Okay, here's my take on it.
The funny part about that photo to me, because it's the photo of Scott and then the photo of Scott in drag, is I searched the photo because I wanted to find a better copy of it to send, and it's a promotional photo for a play called The Evil Eye that Scott wrote, but he was banned from performing in it because of academic problems.
Yes, his marks weren't high enough to be doing plays, and that's one of those things where, okay, you're going to school and eyes on the prize. The idea is to not fail and try and get high enough marks so that you can graduate, and then you can do all of this other stuff exclusively. I would have been exactly the same way. It was one of the reasons that I dropped out in high school. It's like I just can't pretend that all of this is as important to me as people want this to be. But yes, that definitely happened to Scott at Princeton, which he definitely got his revenge, because if he's not the most famous Princeton student, he's definitely the most famous failed Princeton student, where that's, if I had to call to mind another Princeton graduate that people would have heard of, no, nobody's in the same category as F. Scott Fitzgerald, and that's one of those things. Took a few decades to get there, from Scott Fitzgerald's sad story, drank himself to death, crazy wife. That's all that this guy was, which is basically what Dow was trying to recover. But let's go back to thinking of Scott that way, because if this guy who calls homosexuals fairies turns out to be some great literary master, then almost everything that I'm working on is for naught. And it's like, well, it's not for naught, but you can't elevate homosexuality by destroying F. Scott Fitzgerald. And that was one of the points that I think